Poppy Playtime. My complicated relationship with everything that's huggy and slash or wuggy has been documented for a good 3 years at this point, and it only serves to get more complicated as time goes on. Last year, we were graced with the release of the 3rd chapter, an experience I'm willing to label as one of the best mascot horror games to ever release, and just a general contender for one of the best horror games of 2024. But like, what was the competition? Moozy, Sprunky, goddamn Cakey's Twisted Bakery? Mike Moot certainly thought so. In a lot of ways, the success of Chapter 3 almost didn't even make sense to me. The quality shift was such an upgrade from Chapter 2 in literally every conceivable way, really proving that this extra year of development time was absolutely worth the wait. Not just improving on the visuals and animation from the previous installments, but the overall gameplay and fun factor as well, topped with a much more compelling and memorable villain compared to Chapter 2, rivaling the iconography of Huggy Wuggy, possibly even surpassing him for a time. So to say the stakes were high for Chapter 4 would be more than just an understatement. Having now taken the time to update the engine, the wait between these two installments would be shorter than the last time, while still having all the fantastic quality of life improvements from 3. The hype was kicked into full throttle as Mob Entertainment proved that they can make something incredible once more, and the first thing they revealed to us about this new chapter was the nightmare critters.
Who are you?
Okay, I think we got off on the wrong footing here. Although I don't really hate this idea, the premise of these guys being Garbage Pail Kid versions of the smiling critters, they certainly did feel very forced at the time of their reveal. Many criticizing this inclusion as a lazy attempt to cash in on the overwhelming success of the smiling critters, and yeah, that's literally all they are.
Wait, what happened?
But you know what? Maybe it's going to be okay. Mob quickly confirmed these guys weren't going to be the main focus of the chapter, so we waited for more information to be dropped down to us, and it was certainly worth the wait. As the months went on, we got the reveal of new antagonist Yarnaby, as well as Dr. Harley Sawyer, who without a mile is the coolest design we have gotten in this series so far. Completely contrasting the rest of the toys as this edgy, badass, and imposing villain who would surely be the main antagonist of this chapter. That's gotta be our guy, right? Like seriously, who else would take the role as a main antagonist for this chapter?
Who are you?
Okay, so like, you set up 2 whole characters that had the chance to be the main threat of the game, with a few good weeks prior of setup to be the main character, and then in the span of 1 night before launch, this bastard shows up and rug pulls everything. You ruined it, Doey! You ruined it! This decision absolutely perplexed me. I assumed they would have a character or two that would be revealed only at launch. They've done it in the past, but the main antagonist of this chapter? Really? Like, you guys put this guy in the fucking cover art of the game. Why? My initial reaction to new character Doey the Dough Man went about exactly like that. It may have been because I didn't like his design nearly as much as the other 2 characters revealed, or it may have done with the fact that I found out his existence through him being leaked by somebody finding him at Walmart before officially being revealed. But you know what? Whatever. Maybe he'll still be an interesting and compelling character. From the trailer, we can gather that he'll be the first bigger body that actually seems to be friendly, which is definitely a nice change of pace. So, I'll give it a chance. There's definitely some mixed signals going in, but going off of Mob's track record, this was destined to be their biggest, scariest, and best chapter to date. Right? Right? Alright, I think we're getting a bit carried away. Let's dial it back a little. Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 isn't something I feel like I can just explain beat for beat like I have done for previous chapters. I don't believe that would do exactly how I feel about this game justice. Instead, we're going to be dissecting each chunk of the game as we get there, as we try to find what exactly went wrong. I'll make it clear before we get into the game itself, Chapter 4 isn't something that I can just give my opinion straight for. It's a game that I feel like has some of the best sequences in the entire franchise so far, while also having some of the most rushed, anticlimactic, and unnecessary additions shoved in. In almost every way, this chapter feels like a complete downgrade from what came before, and I want to figure out exactly why. So, let's start from the beginning. You know, the game we're covering today may be cool and all, but is it set in space? Yeah, no, that's what I thought. Thankfully today, we got that covered with Star Trek Fleet Command. This video is sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Command. Star Trek Fleet Command is a free-to-play MMO taking place in a vast open world to explore, set in the massive Star Trek universe. Players can navigate the galaxy, discovering planets, space stations, and mysterious anomalies. Ooh. With the ability to recruit legendary characters, choose your favorite faction, and build iconic ships like the USS Enterprise to be sent out to explore, harvest resources, and even conquer territories and engage in strategic battles in PvP or PvE settings. The game is constantly being updated as well, with it currently celebrating the 30th anniversary of Star Trek Voyager. To join in on the action, click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen and enter promo code Voyager30 to unlock Voyager's morale officer, Neelix. Again, click the link in the description or scan the QR code and explore the final frontier in Star Trek Fleet Command. Now, back to the video. Like every chapter previously, this game opens with an in-universe commercial for the toy Doughy the Doughman with some really neat stop-motion animation. Out of all the opening commercials shown in this game so far, this is definitely my second favorite behind the smiling critters, no complaints here. This advert eventually transitions into camcorder footage of a mother recording her kid opening Christmas presents, this kid being named Jack. He's given his own Doughy the Doughman figure before being surprised with one more gift, a trip to the Playtime Co. factory. One spooky transition later, we see multiple angles of footage where Jack is wandering off the tour guide. This obviously not ending well. Jack falls face first into a vat of Doughy, the group and staff going into a state of hysteria before we fade into the title card. Raw as hell opening, I can't even lie. Cutting back into gameplay, we pick right up where we left off last chapter. Poppy has a realistic depiction of a panic attack while we head down the elevator from where we left off. The elevator to hell, as Poppy describes it. Making the journey down here actually feels pretty ominous. Journeying down to the damn center of the Earth's core each chapter is definitely a trope that gets really tiresome in mascot horror games, but I feel this one is one of the few times this decision has actually been earned. With this area being hyped up as the worst that Playtime Co. has to offer since last year, after being dropped off by Poppy, we hoist ourselves into a loading bay that looks absolutely stunning. The environmental art of Chapter 3 was top-notch, and I am really digging the darker and industrial look of this area. Super excited to see what's to come. We do a few basic puzzles that briefly reintroduce ourselves to the core mechanics as we press forward. The environments continue to get darker and more impressive as we progress. The mix of the caves transitioning seamlessly into the facility walls is so cool, and it will never not be cool to me. It was awesome in Chapter 3, and it's awesome here. Getting to a door with rope tied over it, we'll need to shoot it with our flare gun in order to progress. The room to the side of it explains that the flare now has the potential to cause flammable objects to explode on contact. A super interesting interesting addition to this mechanic, and I am really interested on how it will be utilized later on. I mean, why else would they explain this so early if it won't be important throughout the game, right, Mob Entertainment? Burning down the rope holding open the door, the sight behind it is rather grisly. Hey, looks like Playtime Co. took the Funko Pop approach. I have already made my mixed feelings about the Nightmare Critters vocalized, but this set piece is probably the most impressive area in this entire franchise. I can only imagine how long this whole thing took to render. From the shadows of piles, we can hear and see creatures peeking out at us, stalking us. Gradually finding these little notes left by a girl in the hands of Playtime Co. A girl named Riley. This is a really fun snippet of extra lore in the facility down here, truly showing how the evil actions of this company have affected people on a personal level. Talking about being experimented on, abandoned, and left to rot. This was just one child's experience. Look around us. As we make our way towards the front gates, a loud alarm blares and a spotlight shines down on us as the door in front of us closes. This caused us to have some uninvited guests. I'm sorry, I'm trying to take this seriously, but what happened to the mini Huggies animation, dude? They move like Smiling Friends background characters now. Making quick work of the swarm using our flare gun and dodging skills as they just back off, I guess. Scurrying away with the door closed, we don't have a way of getting into the facility now, so we gotta find another way around, scaling the mountain of dead toys to make our way through a small crevice at the top. Working our way through the gloomy caves once more as we enter another loading facility, before getting a call.
Hey, it's me again, Ollie.
Ollie calls us for the first time this chapter, and rent was due. Holy shit.
The piles, the dead, they all came from inside. Believe me, everything Poppy said about this place is true. It's hell.
Ollie not only sounds older now, but the direction his VA takes for this character is a strong upgrade to Chapter 3. I know what they were likely going with back then, but I don't think they could have had him talking like a Nick Jr. protagonist the entire time with the tone this game is now going with. Like Poppy did, Ollie starts hyping up this next area we're making our way to as hell itself, unlike anything we've come across previously. And doing a quick puzzle to retrieve the key needed to get the train going, we spot what is likely the remains of Riley along with it. Why she decided to die in the toilet, I don't know. And you know, what's the other thing? Why the f are there even toilets in these cells? I mean, they do gotta eat. That's gotta go some. Do the toys have to shit? We have the option to insert another tape to listen to, but more about that later. For now, we power on the train and we make our way inside. And head to the true terrors, as they're described. However, on our commune, we're interrupted by something. Or someone.
Now what's this? Do I feel something squirming its way beneath my skin?
Dr. Harley Sawyer makes his grand reveal and immediately starts aura farming. This guy has been hyped up to be the worst of the worst Playtime Co. had to offer for 2 whole chapters now, and we're finally face to face with him. Or face the screen, I guess. His introduction, although brief, makes a really strong impression, having such an imposing voice and already making hard as hell one-liners, ultimately knocking us out right before we reach our destination.
Not even the ground beneath your feet is yours. There are no places you can hide. Not from me.
So, you know how I said I wouldn't just be going beat for beat with this video, and then I have completely contradicted myself for the last 7 minutes? Well, Yeah, that's because the last 5 minutes were good. I can't really say the same about the next 3 hours, however. So I don't know exactly what happened from here on out. I don't know if the art team or creative directors left or got fired. I don't know if the team was just rushed, but Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 from this point on takes such a nosedive in quality, and admitting that is so disheartening to have to do. Every area after this will still have highlights, sure, but it's nowhere near as action-packed or as polished as Chapter 3 was. I want to make it clear that I am reviewing the post-patch version of the game rather than the pre-patch, but even the mountains of fixes they have introduced so far has not gotten rid of every issue, even the most glaring ones. Getting back to the game itself, after we wake up, we are taken to the holding cells of the toys that have been brought down here. We do have some interesting sights to look at, such as the many rotting corpses of Playtime Co. employees, which is pretty neat. It's nice to see that they're not cheaping out on the gore. But right next to that... Can you tell the creative directors left yet? The holding cells is certainly a mixed bag. On one hand, I believe the idea is really cool and has so many harrowing implications as to how life was down here. But on the other hand, there's just not many interesting places to look at. The main holding block is really nice. This may be a weird comparison, but it actually reminds me a lot of the Mob of the Dead COD Zombies map, and the back of the cell seeming to have been pushed by these hand-shaped pistons is also a really cool detail, but everything else around this area is just not really memorable. We got the resting quarters for what I presume is the guards, but there's hardly anything interesting to look at here, just some military crates and an open locker with a shirt hung up inside of it. This room is also the area where we get reunited with a red hand, which works like a key card in this chapter. It also gives us access to the flashlight once again. This is certainly a good improvement from Chapter 3, where our flashlight would just, like, turn on and off at random for no reason. The doctor notices us acquiring this, and decides it would be a good time to send his little minions after us once again. All of the cells open up, and we're pushed into a combat scenario that is literally the exact same as the one previously. This just happens in this game from time to time. It's never fun, I'm sorry. Do you remember those really repetitive combat sections from the first Bendy game? It's literally just a projectile version of that. The flare gun doesn't feel fun to use at all, and there's nothing satisfying about shooting the critters away this time around like it was in Chapter 3. It may be because the stakes here are a lot lower, only being damaged as opposed to fully killed like the plushies did previously, but also the overabundance just makes us feel more like a chore for the sake of padding than anything else. And after Harley finally calls them off, they just scurry away on the same animation cycle into a black wall. There's literally nothing textured inside of this vent. What the hell, Mob Entertainment? There's really not much else to say about this part of the game, unfortunately. We find one of the cutouts of Yarnaby, one of the very few unique cutouts of this entire chapter, and it's fun. This one's pretty cute. After that, we just, like, go into the warden's office that, again, looks really bland and uninspired. And don't get me wrong, I understand that the look down here is meant to be a lot more dull and uninviting, but they still had places in the past that typically look boring that still had a good amount of detail in them. The Playcare offices, for example, weren't the most fun thing to look at, but you can tell that there was so much time and effort that went into the props and details scattered around this place. Here, we just stare at the damn same 4 gray walls for basically 70% of this chapter, which makes it really hard to comment on anything interesting. Although, I do have to admit, this set piece of all the bodies scattered around this winding hallway is really cool. Reminds me a lot of the beginning of
Fox
boss fight in the first Metal Gear. Getting what we need from the warden's office, we make our way to the mirroring side of the cell blocks into the security room. But, of course, the doctor has another trick up his sleeve, filling the room with an abundance of red smoke, needing to get out, and this part is really tough if you don't know what you're doing. Essentially, you just need to, like, follow these white marks on the floor to get to this valve and shut off the red smoke. Sounds simple, right? Well, it would be if your vision didn't look like you took 42 Benadryls. I get that the red smoke is meant to distort your vision, and we've seen it do so previously, but but if you get close to finishing up the puzzle, but your vision looks like this by the end of it, genuinely what are you expected to do, man? If I had to give this part anything, at least the checkpoints are very forgiving, but it is still very confusing. Throwing in another positive, at the very least, the Doctor continuing to antagonize us, you know, like an antagonist, has been fun. Speaking of antagonists, however...
Oh, Yarnaby.
Oh, I have so much to say about you. Shortly after turning off all the red smoke again, we are finally met face to face with our secondary antagonist, Yarnaby. I love this design. It's one of my favorite toys they have introduced in a while now. And I also gotta give credit where credit is due. The area that they introduce him in looks really damn cool as well. Being presented as like this maximum security wing of the prison, giving a very sinister undertone. It's honestly really unfortunate to see how cherry-picked the really good set pieces of this game are, considering previously the full packages were all pretty good. I'd rather have a consistent experience with good rooms than have a really good room every 20 minutes or so with needing to look at mediocrity for the rest of the time, but hey, that's just my personal preference. As for Yarnaby himself, I can't really give much of a comment at this time because his introduction is completely sidelined in favor of fucking Michael Kovac. Also, I want to mention that after getting distracted, you can just go back to where Yarnaby was once you're in the vent because Mob didn't set up his trigger properly, so you can just walk around with a Yarnaby statue that can't do anything, and this is really funny. I'm recording this on the 8th, by the way. How has this not been patched yet? Yarnaby then starts to hunt you down through some server rooms, allowing you to get a better look at his model, but still very on rails, unfortunately, which is definitely a bummer. My biggest wish from this chapter was having less sections like that to make it more distinct from previous, but as you'll see, there's really not much of a difference. After this, we get what is quite possibly the shortest and most straightforward chase scene in the entire game. You literally just run in a straight line for 10 seconds, and then after this, he just fucks off for a while. Good introduction, Mob. Definitely up there with the Huggy Wuggies and the catnaps. But oh, trust me, it's gonna get so much worse later. Anyways...
Hello, I'm Pianosaurus.
Pianosaurus. Piano fucking Saurus. I don't think I need to say anything here. You likely know what is going to happen. This character was an inclusion added as a reward to an ARG that people loved. I've seen so many people clamor this one as one of their new favorite designs in the franchise, and I can't really blame them. Bro looks like he loves to play his Jeffy piano. We see his monster design be revealed to us just in the room next, to immediately be killed off. We all know about it. Yes, everyone is angry that Kane Digital Circus was cannibalized by goddamn angel dust. I don't think I really need to talk about how much of a waste this was. I don't really have any true confirmation about this, but I have a hunch this guy was a really late inclusion that was just added for more marketing fluff, as if we didn't already have enough. I don't even like Pianosaurus as much as the other people, but Jesus, man, Infinite in the Bowser versus Eggman death battle was given more respect than this. How do you throw this back? Outside of the killing off a new character as soon as it's introduced thing, Doughy the Doughman's introduction is inoffensive, outside of his big belly jiggling and making noises when it does for some reason.
This way. Follow me.
Where the fuck did he go? In this section, the soundtrack is actually really, really nice, however. When Doughy is introduced, he has a little theme that carries over the motif from the commercial jingle, and I absolutely adore this. We follow Doughy through some interrogation rooms, the animation on him honestly being really fun, throwing out a lot of the realism in favor of making him more like a cartoon character, and I honestly love it. He does anything. He can turn into a bridge, a cylinder, Yeah, that's about it. Doey takes us to the prison courtyard where we do an admittedly pretty fun puzzle where we need to open the prison's courtyard gates to catch up with Doey, making our way into a generator room where we need to turn on the power to get into Safe Haven. It doesn't show up in this footage, but on launch there was a bug that made it to where the light of the benevolent LeBron James would shine down to smite you while you were doing this task. It's thankfully fixed now, but like, how the hell was that not caught in initial playtesting? I'm gonna be saying that a lot going forward, actually. The puzzle is very simple. You just gotta find a bunch of gears and put them on the corresponding cogs, finally allowing you to get into Safe Haven. But first, you gotta go into a cafeteria and move a big fridge where you're attacked by the ethereal mouse. Okay, now we're finally able to go into Safe Haven, right? Oh, fuck you. Okay, no, I gotta admit, the sequence is also pretty cool. For the first time, we get as good of a glimpse at the prototype as we have, showing that he is massive with long, creepy spider legs to bat. This is certainly the biggest tease we have gotten of this character so far, and I am so ready to eventually see that pay off, likely in the next chapter. Following Kissy and Poppy as we finally enter Safe Haven. Goddamn, that took like 15 minutes longer than it should have. Making our way inside, Poppy alerts Doey that the spooky prototype is also down here with us and he has to hold in a crash out. Before storming off and leaving us to talk with this one, Poppy goes on another self-indulgent tangent about the prototype, yada yada yada, we get it. She talks about how we gotta blow shit up though, which means that this mechanic introduced hours ago may finally be important. Yeah, remember that? Safe Haven itself is a really small area for having the chapter be literally named after it, meant to serve as a hideout for the last of the sane toys in the facility, but most of the time they don't even spawn in, so it looks more barren than it's even meant to be. The doodles on the wall and such are cute though. You can tell that a lot of detail went into here. In one of the side rooms, there's also this shrine that you can find. I'm not really sure what the significance of this is, but this one image of probably just some developer's child on this side of the table over here is really funny to me. Not much else to say here, so let's go chat back with our favorite Doe Man. Doey gives us some lore updates about Harley Sawyer, talking about how evil and villainous this guy is. This guy's track record is insane. Killing kids, starving kids, directing Fant Force Stick. This guy has done it all. We're told about the Omni Hand and the super secret backup generator and stuff. And we're also given his perspective on Poppy's plan, hoping that we may reconsider our direction. Although this sequence is fairly long with really nothing to do but listen, I really do like this angle it takes. Who knows? Maybe we'll ultimately be given the choice to either help Poppy or Doey in this conflict, leading to different outcomes that'll reflect in Chapter 5. Nah, that's way too creative for Mob Entertainment. We gotta sell $44 Doey the Doe Man plush. Not having any other options, we head out of Safe Haven and into the infirmary. As we walk out, we see a bunch of the sick and malnourished toys, and I get that this is probably meant to be sad and all, but it's just really funny hearing lines like this.
So sore. Haven't been able to move for hours.
Come out of this. As we walk through the sewers, we hear Mom and Dad fighting from one of the
I think
crates.
you might be wrong, Poppy. What you want?
It's the best for everyone, Doey. That no trace of this place is left. We agree to that.
This conversation is pretty long. It could just be summarized by Doey and Poppy disagreeing with the plan. The sewers is a very short section of the game, but another one that doesn't really make sense to me of how nice it looks compared to so many other areas of this game. I'm typically not a fan of sewer environments in horror games, but this one looks really nice. I wish we were able to spend a little bit more time here. Making our way up an elevator to see an evil vat of green, there's two very interesting lore things up here. I've been trying to avoid most of the lore notes in VHS tapes because they genuinely bloat the game to twice the runtime, but these ones are interesting. In the tape, we're told about a problem child named Kevin, and in the notes, a really kind child named Matthew. Both of these hinting at their involvement with the Doey project, likely meaning it's not just Jack in there. So, we are Doey, I guess. Ollie calls us again to say nothing, talking about the Omni Hand again. man. Like, everybody needs to let this go. Invincible Season 3 had bad animation. I'm tired of pretending it doesn't. After doing a classic Poppy pole puzzle, this door opens up for us and... polished and releasable game, guys! What even happened here, dude? The last room was an immaculate-looking cave that perfectly blended the industrial parts with some natural ones. Now we go here, and it's just the same fucking stone monoliths like it's Indigo Park. But you know what? It's whatever. I feel like we have much bigger issues to worry about right now. Woo! The Yarnaby boss fight. The Yarnaby boss fight. Something I consider to be a highlight of this chapter now, but an absolute blunder on release. Either being way too easy or too hard, with his AI being absolutely relentless for a bit, being able to kill you through your hiding spots. But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, sometimes he just didn't spawn. This area of the game was unfortunately so broken when it first shipped out, and it's such a shame too, because I believe this part to be an absolute highlight. Yarnaby's arena is a chase around no man's land, needing to turn on several generators in order to escape. The sequence itself is actually really tense when it works properly. Yarnaby is super unpredictable with where he's gonna move and is constantly keeping you on your toes, needing to listen out for his footsteps getting closer or further away as you crawl through your tight spaces. The exact objective isn't something that's actively laid out to you, but I honestly don't see it as much of an issue. The fight itself feels very fair and to the point once you know what you're doing, even if it does require a little trial and error. Although, I do gotta mention how inconsistent his animations seem to be. When he's just standing still and idling, he looks a-okay, but he barely has any turnaround animations, so when he leaves the room, he'll just slide away. It's not super jarring compared to some other stuff in this game, but it's just strange considering how amazing the roaming enemy of the last chapter looked while it moved. Yarnaby will use many dirty tactics, utilizing secret vents to go from one area of the facility to another in a matter of seconds, getting closer to you, but also giving you a brief moment of serenity to hopefully get further away. After turning on enough generators, you're able to leave by the skin of your teeth. However, it wouldn't be that easy. Yarnaby's real chase sequence begins, and it's only slightly better than the last time. You just run up a flight of stairs or something, swing over the other side, and... oh. Okay, again? Really? I know killing off their secondary antagonists is typically how this stuff goes, but this felt kind of unnecessary to do it so soon. Yarnaby was heavily marketed in the promotional material, unlike Miss Delight, which made her death and whole sequence feel a lot more earned. Here, Yarnaby was hyped up to be a primary threat in this game, and is killed off by what we'll come to see is basically halfway through. It's just a really strange decision to make, especially considering they also killed off another marketed character immediately after being introduced. But hey, at least we have two more, right? Surely one of them will stick around long enough to see in the next chapter, right? Also, if you restart your checkpoint right after the chase, this happens. What is it with this guy's obsession with freezing in place constantly? Making our way out of no man's land is pretty easy from here. We take this really strange looking elevator to the next floor, and this is where we meet up back with Dowie, who accidentally opens the pipe of frost and despair, needing to free him from his icy prison. Must be subtle foreshadowing. He starts crashing the hell out, so we carry on without him for now. Making our way forward, the doctor finally comes back into the story and starts talking to us on the intercom once again. Heat checking us on exactly why we came back, aura farming us in the process. The next room introduces us further to these broken cold pipes, which I'm gonna call the blue smoke going forward, introducing it to us in puzzle scenarios. A gimmick like this this really harkens back to Portal 2 mechanics, which I can certainly get down with. Continuing to use it in scenarios with higher stakes come the next room, being this twisted operating layer. Harley actively freezing us in place, continuing to drop badass and vague messages.
Once they had choice, once they were free, this was their creation. They've made him real and trapped us both there.
The rest is pretty straightforward from here. Traversing some makeshift tunnels, we're brought to another operating room with... I am finally reunited with you, my beloved. The gas mask cameos for a brief return, sporting a much better HUD than the one that was given to us in Chapter 3. Needing to traverse tunnels filled with red smoke to solve a code given to us on a terminal. While we're doing this, we can also find another lore tape, which shows us exactly how Dr. Sawyer became the way he did. But this tape is really funny because the other scientists featured in this tape, Dr. White, is voiced by fucking Sean Chiplock.
Holographic miners, my favorite!
Leaf Pierre also shows up in this scene, out-eviling the evil scientist somehow. I really hope we are able to kill this bastard next chapter. This little facility has you running around these operating rooms, needing to collect codes from different toys that have been operated on in the past. It's honestly really disturbing if you linger around. You can listen to audio recordings left here from the operations that play on loop.
Numbness is to be expected, but you'll feel better. Don't you worry now, Cassie. The feeling will pass. Just a pinch, that's all.
Why can't I feel anything?
Really haunting detail. I love stuff like this. Once you get every note, the puzzle this time around is actually kind of difficult, needing to utilize this anatomy chart to connect the sequence of numbers. I did not know this at the time, so I just kept brute forcing until I eventually caved in and looked up a walkthrough because this is not obvious at all. So thank you once again to our goats over at the Game Archivist. Using another plug to destroy another one of these brains that are in the container, finally making our way out of the red smoke infested corridor. However, as we do... Well, that was unnecessary. It's not like it broke the mask either, at least not any more than it already is. You don't think that this may still be useful later, player? No? Okay. The trek out of the operation rooms is simple. We do some purple hand platforming out before we have the genius idea to jump across despite an electrical hazard being right below us, which obviously causes our hand to malfunction, ultimately causing our swing to be interrupted, locking us in what very obviously looks like an arena. And who are we gonna be fighting this time around? Oh yeah, I forgot about you. Can I just take a quick moment to talk about how useless the nightmare critters have been in the plot so far? They've shown up a collective of like 3 times in this game for literal seconds, and this is like the only time one of them gets any spotlight. Thankfully, it's the objective best looking one, don't at me. The sequence itself is like fine, I guess. The stakes are really low because this giant Baba doesn't kill you upon first contact. She kind of just jumps at you and spreads its green goo all over. It really makes you question how in the world this thing doesn't kill you upon first contact, but the tiny smiling critters were able to last chapter. The game calls for us to use those same electrical directors we used in the Yarnaby boss fight to grab enough batteries to get a key card that opens the door to your escape. Like basically every puzzle in this game, it's kind of unclear what you need to do at first, but once you figure it out, it's pretty smooth sailing. Though it was mainly difficult to just not be able to stop moving throughout this entire sequence, since this thing will just sometimes endlessly jump at you, not allowing you to catch a break. I also experienced some pretty bad frame drops here that I hadn't in other areas, which kind of sucks since you're constantly on the move, making things a lot more disorienting. Once we complete the mission, we lock ourselves in the room we needed to escape through, the doctor giving us a chilling ultimatum. We have a decision to make here. We can sit and wait for the critter to break in, ultimately ending us, or take the life of the one imprisoned here, making us no better than who had come before. Or we can just leave through the ceiling and make the doctor look like an absolute idiot. Whatever you choose to do, it literally doesn't matter. You just get different pieces of dialogue depending on your choice. Although, I do gotta admit, the line given to you if you don't kill the critter, I believe to be the superior one.
Fine. Have it your way. Come on in. The doctor will see you now.
This is it, the moment we have been waiting for, the grand confrontation of the doctor. Entering the elevator to go see him, you already know the stakes are on. Entering a corridor of TVs that have the same eye from earlier, the sinister tone accelerating to a grand reveal.
Not even the ground beneath your feet.
Oh man, this is surely gonna be awesome.
Get out.
Huh?
Get out.
Wait,
Get out.
What the fuck?
Get
Wait,
out.
wait,
Out,
where'd you
out,
wait,
gone,
wait, stop it,
bye,
wait.
bye.
Ah!
The doctor. Oh boy, the doctor. The big encounter that has been built up to since the very beginning of the chapter. The encounter with the big bad villain who up to this point has terrorized us. What did Mob Games have in store for us this time? I'ma keep it blunt, not much. The doctor boss fight and death are without a doubt the most disappointing parts of this chapter to me. Not to say that nothing good comes from it, because as I will explain in a moment, it has the potential to be very, very good, but I feel like it just misses the mark. As we walk into the doctor's lair, we get a glimpse of the man himself who has been reduced to a brain hooked up to one giant menacing piece of machinery. It is here where he reveals that we've walked into his trap and we're dropped into the setting where this fight takes place. A huge underground labyrinth filled with robotic bodies he made for himself. This is where the fight and my issues become immediately apparent. Because conceptually, this area is extremely cool. You're basically running around in the dark, trying to the best of your abilities to escape while surrounded by the doctor's robotic bodies. Any one of them may give chase at any given moment, but you don't really know which one it'll be until it's booking it for you. The designs of the robots are easily my favorite we've gotten from any Poppy chapter too. They're so tall and menacing, and the stitched together cloak made from multiple lab coats is such a creative way of conveying this character visually. That is about where my praise ends though, because although this sequence is conceptually amazing, in execution it completely falls flat. The sequence feels extraordinarily undercooked. The animations of the robots themselves are all kinds of janky, with them looking as though they're sliding across the floor and clipping through walls at practically every moment. And on top of that, there isn't really a clear mechanic here that the player is given to work with. You'd think it would be as simple as the robots appearing like statues, suddenly giving chase when you pass the wrong one, but that's not really what goes on here. Instead, robots will just randomly give chase unprompted, sometimes crowding up so badly they mess up each other's pathing, and once they've chased long enough, they'll just goofily run back to their default position. The lack of polish here makes it feel like a sequence with a ton of potential to be scary is just unintentionally hilarious instead, which makes me very sad to say, because I feel like had this been given a bit more time, this could have easily been my favorite part of chapter 4. Once you get out of that mess of an encounter, you're able to finally get to the doctor himself, who you just kinda kill in a random cutscene with no build-up or anything. A cutscene which is also still scuffed, mind you, because the robots use the same broken run animation, which makes them look like they're slipping on ice. That is the dramatic send-off to who was supposedly the main villain of the chapter, and who is one of the single most important characters in the lore. To say I was let down by this is a massive understatement. I sincerely just hope that in the future we will see patches that will make this sequence live up to the clear potential it has. This character deserves better, man. Anyways, that's enough out of me. I better get out of here before, I don't know, Lankman shows up. Yeah, sure, we'll go with that. Bye-bye!
Well, are they gone? Okay, jeez. You know, all the sudden cameo stresses me out, dude. It's just like always being caught off guard. No, it never lets up. I hate it. After Sawyer's untimely and anticlimactic demise, we go to the room aside from him and retrieve the Omni Hand. Hooray! This shit looks like an Iron Man repulsor. There's not really any reason to linger around this area now, unfortunately, so back to Safe Haven we go. Surely this means we're approaching the end of the game soon, right? Using the Black Mesa tram cart to make the trek less hard on ourselves, we arrive back to Safe Haven in no time. Poppy notices we have gotten the Omni Hand and congratulates us before telling us to meet in the generator room. Though this sequence is really funny to me since she says this.
Take a minute to catch your breath. I'm sure the others would love to talk with you.
But if you try to interact with literally anyone else, nothing happens. Thanks, game! Although, I do like this one. Big fan of whatever's going on here. Entering the generator room with Poppy and Doughy, the two argue again for a little bit before...
Just give it a second.
Ollie? You there? What's...
He's outside!
Ollie?
He's outside!
Who? Who's... Oh no.
Oh, shit's about to get real. With the prototype now hot on our trail, it's up to us to use the Omni Hand to get the backup generator back running. Ollie works with us to get the generator back on, but he strangely sounds really different this time around.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Doing the really simple generator reset puzzle, Ollie sounds relieved, but his tone, once again, still sounds really off.
It's done. We did it. Good.
Poppy congratulates us once again as we walk out with our newfound hero ship and... I'm keeping this thing. I declare myself the sole owner of it. I'm giving it the login and my password to my channel. You will not hear from me again. Poppy once again gives us more errands to do as we gotta go plant those explosives now that we have the Omni Hand. We trek back from the sewers to the mines where that boarded up area from earlier is strangely accessible now. Heading further down the cave, we start to find explosives that we will need to plant, but rubble from behind us locks us into this area. Our objective now is to just find a bunch of C4 to place onto the pipes, turn the smoke valves, and do this really confusing puzzle needing to redirect the red smoke correctly. I am gonna be completely honest, I don't even know how I solved this. I just kind of brute forced it until it worked. Also, remember when it said the flare gun could explode things like 2 hours ago? Yeah, we finally got that mechanic shown to us at the tail end of the chapter. It barely even does anything either. I don't even know why this was an inclusion they bothered adding at this point. With the explosives about to go off at any minute and a bunch of critters on our tail, we make our grand escape from the Foundation. But as we're running...
The prototype. I lost track of him in the tunnels. Have you seen him? Was he at the Foundation? Or was he... What? What's going on? I let him away, didn't I? The generator's fine. It's... Oh, no.
Oh god, he's about to crash the fuck out, isn't he? Yeah, he's absolutely about to crash out.
Alright, so let's kill him.
Okay, as much as I hate where this is going, I can't lie. Doughy's characterization has absolutely grown on me as this chapter has proceeded to go on. The subtle hints throughout the chapter that there is not just one, but 3 bodies that make up his mass is really cool, and all of them fighting for control in this final sequence is really great. You can tell that this was the character Mob was the most passionate about executing right. Barely slipping away out of Doughy's grasp, like like literally slipping out of his grasp. He continues our pursuit of us on the other side of the facility. Although I am still kind of pissed off that he was killed off super quickly, the contrast between Dowie and the Doctor is honestly pretty cool. Having to go up against a very logical and sophisticated threat, now along with a very emotional and instinctive one, is a fun switch up, but again, I'm pretty sure I know how this is going to end, so I'm a little bit hesitant on giving too much praise. The Dowie boss is really cool in concept, almost up there with the Catnap boss from Chapter 3, but it has so many glaring flaws that I unfortunately just can't overlook. First off, the flare gun. Oh boy, the flare gun. This tool was not made for precision shots, but you gotta make them in this fight. Essentially, the whole thing boils down to these freezing canisters around the map sticking to Dowie. You gotta shoot him while he's under these saw blades in order to deal damage, but because of how the flare gun works, this is made extremely difficult. You'd think getting him under one of these would be easy considering how big the damn guy is, but it's a real challenge sometimes. Continuously missing your shots where you either freeze him too early or too late to be caught by the saw blade. He'll sometimes also do these other two attacks where he spits spikes at you from across the map or attacks you with these claws from underneath, and these feel like they trigger at the most inconvenient times most of the time. But you know, you can argue that some of these are just semantics, and I wouldn't push back on it too hard. But you want to know the biggest flaw about this boss fight? The most crucial detail I feel we are missing here? You know what? Let me just play a clip of this boss fight completely uninterrupted for a second. Let me see if you can notice it. You hear it? Or the lack of hearing it? Where the fuck is the music? This is the climax of the game, a game that should have ended an hour ago if we're being honest, and it feels so naked and unnatural. I genuinely thought that this was a bug at first, but no, there's just no original score that plays during this final showdown, and it sucks. It takes this entire set piece down from feeling like a borderline Resident Evil type boss fight to just a really awkward experience. Let me give a good comparison actually. The final boss fight in the Doors Floor 2 update plays out incredibly similar to this. A grand industrial cylinder where you need to traverse different levels of the facility in order to complete certain objectives. You want to know one of the biggest things I praise that area of the game for? This track absolutely rules. How we didn't get anything like this, or just anything at all for Dowie, absolutely baffles me. I don't even think a song like this would fit the area that well, but let's just take that and overlay it here for a moment. That sounds more correct than just nothing at all, doesn't it? When I first saw this section of the game, I thought it would be a major highlight of the chapter, but I believe too many poor decisions in execution here water it down substantially. It's such a shame too, because I really wanted to like this part, but I can't in good faith say it's good, which is a very common theme on how I feel about this chapter as a whole now that I'm thinking about it. After we trap Dowie enough saw blades, he disappears for a minute, as we try to leave. But, as always on cue...
You and Poppy! It's all your fault! Want to kill you! Kill everyone who hurts me!
Having no other options here, we finish off Dowie once and for all.
Can't trust anyone! The gentle voices lie! You lie! I'm trying to be better, to be who they needed. Not smart enough, not good enough, not... I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I have a lot I want to say here, but we're wrapping up, so I'll have to save it for just a second. Making our way out of the cave, we ponder about our solemn victory, not knowing where our very finite allies even lay any longer. We decide to head down some random pipe for some reason, and hey, would you look at that? Hi, Kissy, hi!
You! What did you do? Why did you kill Dowie? Do you even understand what happened?
What the fuck? I did what you sent me to do, you porcelain asshole. Poppy tries to call for Ollie, and a sequence plays out that I feel most people would have saw coming 2,000 miles away, but I personally still believe it to be a really cool reveal.
Ollie! Something's gone horribly wrong. The safe haven...
Shelf ventilation block B6. Is this where you are, Poppy?
What?
Stay where you are.
And listen closely.
Kissy also having a breakdown in the corner during all this is also so sad too. Like, come on, I'll get you out of there, come on. Poppy also starts having a mental breakdown of her own about being lied to for years, so she just kinda dips, leaving us just with Kissy. But sitting here is going to be something very short-lived.
Some friend, huh?
Don't worry, I'll find her.
As for you two, try to land on your feet.
Kissy, being the absolute goat that she is, makes one more veiled attempt at saving us, although it unfortunately doesn't go according to plan. Now being stranded even deeper into Playtime Co., we can't do anything but continue to press on. In the distance, we see a pair of doors that lead into a very peculiar room. A greenhouse of some sorts, poppy flowers lining both sides parallel. In front of us, lying a blast door. Entering with the Omni hand gives us this sequence.
Hi. My name is Leif Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at Playtime Co. If you're seeing this, you must be very, very lost. Well, rest assured, friend, our state-of-the-art laboratory is just up ahead. Why don't you just go on inside and tap one of our scientists on the shoulder? Tell them you're lost. They'll be glad to help. All right. Let's be honest. You're not supposed to be here. This is the single most high security, high clearance section of the whole factory. When someone finds you down here, you will be shot. And before you get any ideas, don't think you can just sneak away either. No, the second you put this tape in, it set off an alarm. So if anyone's home, they know exactly where you are. Pretty nifty, huh? Security is very important to us here. If I were you, I'd start running.
Man, lots to unpack here, huh? I will probably be the first to say that this reveal is really cool, potentially being the biggest highlight of the entire chapter. Huggy coming back for what is likely the final outing this game is going to have is really cool in my opinion. Having him covered in red smoke that made him look vaguely pink was also so cool, and I can't help but praise that. That is a really awesome callback to Kissy's introduction in Chapter 2. Although, with that being said, I also believe this to genuinely be the best part of the game when it ends. That's not good. This review probably felt like it was missing something, right? I barely covered or even touched any of the tapes. In Chapter 3, the tapes made up about 18 minutes of the total experience altogether. Wanna know how much the tapes in Chapter 4 make up? Okay, they did not need to have 40 minutes of tapes in here. It is just not necessary. I'm all for optional lore stuff, don't get me wrong. I love it most of the time. But having this much in a 2-hour-long experience feels very redundant, especially considering how many more cutscenes where you just sit around and listen to conversations play in this game. Half the time in this chapter, your experience is just gonna have you standing still. It's bloat in an already bloated experience. I've seen people refer to this as the Spider-Man 3 of mascot horror, and I couldn't agree more. We got 3 new villains that absolutely did not have enough time to bask in the sun individually, all 3 of them being characters that absolutely could have gotten the full attention this chapter, all shafted for each other. The Doctor is one of my favorite antagonists that has ever shown up in a game like this. He feels like William Afton if he actually decided to do anything interesting in a FNAF game. And Doey was a very compelling and well-written character for what we got to see of him. Killing them both off, locking us out of being able to ever see them again next chapter, just felt like a complete waste. People have had this criticism with Poppy for a while now, where they are just way too trigger happy with who they introduce and kill off, and it does honestly feel that way. It's gonna be really hard to get excited about a new character that'll be marketed for the better half of a year for them to just be killed off as soon as they are introduced. We had way too many new faces this chapter. The nightmare critters could have been completely written out of the story and nothing would have changed, making me believe the only reason why they were even an inclusion was just so they can collect dust on the Playtime Co. store in a few months. I swear, if I catch any of you guys buying the Icky Licky plush when that drops, it is on site. They don't even have any cardboard cutouts or anything like that either. Like, in this chapter, we just got the smiling critter once again. If you're going to introduce a whole new gang of characters, why would you omit the opportunity to give them a semblance of a personality outside of a single paragraph you need to look outside of the game to even find? Are you stupid? I know I sound really heated right now, and maybe I'm being a little too uncharitable, but this disappointment comes from an extremely personal place. Last year, I praised Chapter 3 as the best mascot horror game I ever played, and I still vehemently stand by that. To see that formula get pushed out of the oven so fast with a bug-riddled, rushed story, poorly executed mess of an experience hurts me on a personal level. Like, my name literally shows up in the credits of this game. I am very passionate about this, okay? Moving on to Chapter 5, Mob really needs to reevaluate what led all of these mistakes piling up and harness that same level of quality they had back in 3. Innovate on the formula again. The Omni Hand was barely even a new gimmick because you just used it as like a super key card. Do something a little different like the Purple Hand or the Flare Hand again. Go back to that pseudo Metroidvania style of progression that was present in 3. I loved that. However, unfortunately, I do think it's too late to give us a new chapter we can actually get attached to. Chapter 5 is likely going to be the last chapter, having us do our final showdown with the prototype, something that has been looming over our heads for the better part of 3 years. I really don't want to see Mob fall into the same trap that their inky predecessors did with this one. I want them to get it right. Take another 2 years if you have to, if it means it'll be worth the wait. I think most people would be completely okay with waiting for that. I just really, really hope they get their finale right. But I can only hope. There's a ton of stuff I likely glossed over in this review. Like I said, there's plenty of tapes that added world building to the game that I just didn't cover for time constraints, as I wanted to focus this primarily on the game itself. If you want lore stuff, just wait another week or so. Mr. Tom Game Theory is probably cooking up something for you to enjoy as we speak. So, the funny thing about that, he put one out like a few days ago. This was written like at the very beginning of February, so yeah, that's why that's dated. But yeah, go watch that if you like lore. Thank you to Postrespec for coming on and rambling about the Doctor, and thank you to my patrons, especially GameBro Ace 1, The Blue Guy, Corey Bruh, Funky Izzy, Davian McKean, Aaron Parsons, Elise Giesbrett, James Bond Fan, Rickort12, Coral Lotus, Pigpen, D for DJ, It's Juicy, Just Sam, Dusky, and Squeaks the Corgay. I've been Dags, and until next time...
Minus 1 million.
Oh, it looks like I have a job to do. Expect another video in a few days, I guess.